I'm 103 years old, and every morning I make 2 cups of coffee. One for me, one for my wife. She's been gone 17 years. I pour hers out at noon, then I do it again the next morning. My granddaughter says I'm being sentimental. Maybe. Or maybe I just never learned how to stop showing up for somebody, even after they're gone. My name is Hal Purcell. I'm going to tell you the truest thing I know about love, and I'm warning you now. It's not what they put on greeting cards. I was born in 1923 in Barron County, Kentucky. And before you ask, yes, the name fits. Tobacco country. Red clay and limestone and not much else. My daddy, Earl Purcell, farmed 40 acres that belonged to his daddy before him. He wasn't a hard man, he was a quiet one. There's a difference people don't appreciate. Hard men hit things. Quiet men just don't talk about them. My mother, Virginia, taught school at the one room up on Dry Creek Road. She read books. My daddy thought that was fine as long as supper was ready. She loved him in a way that confused me as a boy. He never said anything tender, never brought her flowers or held her hand in public. But she'd watch him cross the yard, and her whole face would change. I asked her once why she married a man who never said anything. She laughed and said, because he means every word he doesn't say. I was the youngest of 4 boys. The other 3 were built like my daddy, thick-shouldered, good with their hands. I was built like my mother's side, thin, bookish, more interested in how things worked than in working them. But I learned the land. You don't grow up on a farm and not learn the land. You learn that soil tells you everything if you bother to listen. You learn that some years the rain comes and some years it doesn't. And you learn, this is the part nobody teaches you, that patience isn't a virtue, it's a survival skill. We scraped through the Depression by growing our own food. I wore my brother's clothes until they fell apart. Then Mama patched them and I wore them again. I met Margaret Ray Hobson at a church social in the spring of 1946. I'd just come home from the Pacific, 23 years old, skin and bone and nightmares. She was from Louisville, educated, wore a yellow dress, talked more in one evening than my daddy had in a calendar year. She had opinions about Roosevelt and the Marshall Plan and the future of tobacco farming in Kentucky. I had opinions about nothing. I just wanted to stop dreaming about Okinawa. I fell in love with her that night. Not the slow kind, the kind that drops on you like weather. I spent the next 60 years trying to be enough for a woman who deserved somebody with more words than I had. We married in September of '46. I took over the family farm. Margaret taught 4th grade at Barron County Elementary. For 10 years, we were happy in a way I didn't know needed protecting. David came first, 1948. Then James in '51, 2 boys. David was his mother's child, sharp, restless, always asking why. James was mine, steady, quiet, content to be wherever he was. Margaret wanted more, not more children, more life. She wanted to travel. She wanted to move to Lexington, maybe Louisville. She wanted a house with central heat and a library card and neighbors who'd read the same books. I wanted the farm. Now, I'm not a smart man, but I knew enough to see that wanting different things isn't the same as wanting different people. She didn't want another husband. She wanted the same husband in a different zip code. I couldn't give her that. Then the war took everything we were arguing about and made it pointless. David enlisted in 1967, 19 years old. I drove him to the bus station in Glasgow, shook his hand, told him to keep his head down. He grinned and said, "Dad, I'll be fine." Margaret didn't come to the bus station. She couldn't. She sat on the porch and didn't move until I got home. He wasn't fine. February 1968. Two men in dress uniform standing in the yard. Margaret saw them through the window. I heard a sound come out of her that I'd never heard from a human being, like something tearing at the root. I buried my son next to my father. February ground so hard they had to use a jackhammer. I remember thinking, even the earth doesn't want to open up for this. After that, we stopped being a family. We became three people living in the same house, trying not to brush against each other's grief. Margaret started drinking in the afternoons. Just wine at first, then bourbon. I'd come in from the barn and find her asleep on the couch at 4 o'clock with the television talking to nobody. I didn't say anything, didn't know how. My father never taught me how to talk about the things that hurt. He taught me how to fix a fence and shoe a horse and endure. So I endured. James turned invisible. 14 years old, and he moved through that house like a ghost. Did his homework, ate his supper, went to bed. Never complained, never cried. He was turning into me, and I watched it happen and said nothing. One night, Margaret looked at me across the kitchen table. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying or drinking or both. And she said something that stuck in my chest like a fishhook. She said, "You grieve like a rock, Hal. You just sit there and let everything wash over you and never once crack. I need somebody to crack with me, and you won't." I didn't understand why cracking was something she wanted. I thought cracking was the thing you're not supposed to do. I thought holding together was the whole point of being a man. Turns out holding together and holding someone are two different things. I was good at one, terrible at the other. She started driving to Louisville on Fridays, coming back Sunday night, sometimes Monday. I didn't ask where she went. She didn't volunteer. Then the Fridays got earlier. Then the Sundays got later. And one October morning I woke up and her side of the bed was already made. Tight corners, hospital corners. The way you make a bed you're not coming back to. The suitcase was by the door. So now you know what was in that suitcase. 30 years of a woman who deserved more words than I knew how to give. She stood in the kitchen. I stood at the sink. 10 feet between us. Might as well have been a canyon. "I can't do this anymore, Hal. I wanted to say, "Don't go." Felt it right there in my throat. 2 words. Every child knows them. I wanted to say, "I'm sorry I didn't know how to fall apart with you." I wanted to tell her that I grieved for David every single day. That I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and sit on the edge of the bed and hold my own hands together to keep from shaking. That I did crack, I just never let anyone see it. Because my father didn't. Because his father didn't. Because the men in my family carried their pain the way they carried fence posts, on their shoulders, in silence, until they broke. But I didn't say any of that. I heard the screen door close, heard the car start, heard the gravel. That was the loudest silence of my life. She went to Louisville. I stayed on the farm. That's what I knew how to do. Stay. James was 17. He didn't say much about his mother leaving. Purcell men remember. But something shifted in him that fall. He started coming out to the barn in the evenings. Didn't ask to, just showed up, grabbed a rake, worked alongside me until dark. We didn't talk about Margaret. Didn't talk about David. Didn't talk about much at all. But we fixed things together. And some nights, after the work was done, we'd sit on the tailgate and eat cold sandwiches and watch the stars come out over the south field. That was my son teaching me something I should have already known. You don't have to talk to be present, but you do have to show up. 8 months later, a Tuesday in June, I came inside and Margaret was sitting at the kitchen table. Same chair she always sat in. Glass of water. No suitcase. She didn't apologize. I didn't ask her to. She said, "I made spaghetti." I said, "Smells good." We ate dinner like it was any other Tuesday, and that was that. We had 30 more years after that night. Good years mostly. Quiet years. We never became the kind of couple who talks about everything. Some people do. That wasn't us. But she'd put her hand on my shoulder when she passed my chair. Every morning. Just a touch. And I'd leave a cup of coffee on the counter for her before she woke up. Black. 1 sugar. Same as the first morning after we married. That was our language. It wasn't eloquent, but it was ours. Margaret died in 2007. Lung cancer. 3 months from diagnosis to the end. She went fast. I held her hand the whole last week. Didn't let go. Didn't leave the room except when the nurses made me. She woke up one night near the end, looked at me with those eyes that still hadn't changed since the yellow dress. She whispered, "You stayed." I said, "Where else would I go?" I still make 2 cups of coffee every morning. Set hers on the counter where she'd find it. Black, 1 sugar. I pour it out at noon. Then I do it again the next day. My granddaughter says I'm being sentimental. Maybe I am. Or maybe I just don't know how to stop showing up for somebody even after they're gone. Now, I'm going to tell you something and I need you to sit with it. People will say love is about communication, about sharing your feelings, about vulnerability and openness, and all those words that look real nice on a greeting card. And maybe they're right. I wasn't good at any of it. I was good at one thing. I stayed. That's it. Every morning, every bad year, every silence that went on too long, I stayed. And she came back. Maybe that's not enough for some people. I understand that. Some people need the words. Some people need somebody who can crack open right alongside them. I wasn't that man. I wish I had been. I genuinely do. But here's what 103 years taught me. You can love someone with everything you have and still not be what they need. That's not failure. That's just the way the soil lays. Some land gives you tobacco. Some gives you corn. Some doesn't give you much at all. You work with what you got. And some years the harvest is thin and the rain doesn't come, and you stand in the field wondering if any of it was worth the trouble. But you don't abandon the land because of it. You show up the next morning. You put your hands in the dirt, and you trust that something's growing even when you can't see it yet. That's what I did. I showed up every morning, even the mornings when there was nothing left to show up for. I'm 103. I've buried my son. I've buried my wife. I've buried 2 of my brothers and most of my friends. The farm belongs to James now. I sit on the porch and watch him work the same dirt my daddy worked. And every morning I walk into that kitchen and I make 2 cups of coffee. One for me, one for her. I set hers on the counter right where she'd find it. I don't think I'll ever stop, because that's the only language I ever learned. And I figure wherever she is, she still understands it.